edition of the Dojo Pod, I guess, because this is not on the usual Tuesday. This is on Wednesday, and we are live here with a portion of the SUMR.fi team because they are just about to go live with the SUMR. Do you just call it Summer? The Summer token?
Summer token? Yep.
I'm so glad because that's what I've been calling it. I didn't want to be wrong. I didn't know if it was like Sumer. You know, you guys were going with a Sumerian theme. So thank you guys, Chris, Jordan, for joining us. While I edit the link or live stream on X, why don't you guys introduce yourself and what you guys do over at Summer.fi?
Yeah, sure thing. So firstly, thanks for having us back again. I think like last video was like 7 months ago. But yeah, I'm Chris, co-founder and CEO here at Summer.fi. Yeah, obviously project started back in Maker. I was a product manager back in Maker. Yeah, product background and yeah, here leading the team at Summer.fi.
Yeah, so for myself, I'm Jordan, also on the Summer team. Obviously, I'm doing product stuff mostly, and also from the Maker team as well. The Maker background from back in the day, where Chris and I met. So yeah.
Perfect. Now, SUMR is kind of the topic of the day, but before we get into that, can you guys give a brief description of what Summer.fi actually is? I've been trying to explain this to people and trying to say, well, it's kind of like an automated algorithmic yield optimizer for a certain set of whitelisted protocols that tries to abstract the risk from users. But that's a bit of a mouthful. So I imagine you guys have a more concise way of putting this.
Yeah, I guess the easiest way is just to say it's effectively the easiest way to get automated exposure to the highest quality yields in DeFi. So set and forget strategies on USDC, USDT, and ETH. Effectively the best risk-adjusted yield on the market, with an independent risk manager that manages the risk of the vaults in kind of real time.
Jordan looks like you wanted to add something there.
Yeah. No, I think that's pretty much beautifully summed up. I wouldn't maybe add anything. I think for me it's just really when I think about the best, the only thing I'd add is probably that it's quite dynamic. So, you know, yield sources, as you very well know, I listen to a lot of your streams actually, and podcasts and YouTube videos and stuff. And there's so much going on in DeFi, and it's changing all the time. And the protocol is not just static, like those are the yield sources. So if there's a new yield source that comes to the fore, you know, it will be added to the protocol. It will be added to the protocol, you know, when it comes out. So that I think is pretty great. That's the only other thing that I would add, that anything really can be added to the protocol anytime, as long as it fits within the risk parameters, risk criteria.
Oh, I think you're muted, Stephen.
I am muted. So I was going to say, that's one of the big questions, is there's the lower risk vaults and the higher risk vaults. And as far as I understand, there's something like 70 different integrations. Is that the right number, or is it higher or lower?
Yeah, I think about around that. I think 65 to 70. Okay, the number kind of changes in every week range, almost.
Right? There's, now, a couple questions there. When I see like Morpho Gauntlet, and then Morpho KPK, and then Morpho Steakhouse, are those each different separate integrations, or are those all under the umbrella of Morpho?
All different.
Okay, so it's like each individual like depositable vault has to go through its own risk framework criteria before being allowed to be deposited in by the sort of algorithmic system underlying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, 100%.
I think that's a really great point to call out just very quickly, is that, like, you know, an example I gave the other day was Midas. Like, there are a bunch of different Midas vaults.
Yes,
right?
You wouldn't just want to be exposed to any of them without knowing what's going on.
Exactly. And I think the same thing, probably Morpho is the most egregious offender of this, like not in a bad way, but it's great that they have so many options. Mm-hmm. But not all Morpho vaults are created equal.
Yep.
And this gives just an easy way for users to get broad exposure to the best ones without having to do all that work themselves.
And so when I look at these, so I was looking at the underlying of these yesterday or last night, and it feels like the basic thesis for the lower risk vaults is to slightly beat the risk-free rate of lending for these assets, whether it be EURC or USDC or ETH or WETH. and on top of that, be additionally incentivized with SUMR. So you're getting the best of like lend optimization, or there's also holding Sky USDS or Spark USDC, which are multi-billion-dollar assets. So it's like yield from those, yield from lend ag, like fluid lending, syrup lending, morpho lending, with the additional benefit of SUMR. Is that kind of the thesis? And then optimized a bunch of times per day. So there were 190 rebalances in the past 30 days.
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly it. Like if you're a single user and like maybe not with a huge amount of capital, or like everybody has their own like different amounts of what a huge amount of capital is. But if you're trying to manage to earn kind of the best yield possible and so on, you like this afternoon you could go into a market that's paying 6%, but by tomorrow morning that could be paying 2% again. Like it may have only been paying 6% just for the afternoon, then the kind of rates have arbed out for one reason or another, and maybe it's back down to 2%. And then you've got to rebalance again, and maybe that same thing happens over and over again. So this is just continuously rebalancing up to the risk cap set by the risk manager to the pools that have been accepted by the risk manager as well. So you are just earning, like it really is set and forget. So it's doing anything or everything that you would do manually when you are not manually trying to manage this money, unless you want to settle, like you said, for maybe like the risk-free rate when you look at things like Sky or Aave and so on that have the years and years and years of Lindy. And so on, and like very much trusted protocols. But again, the lower risk vaults are pretty much just going across those lower, those long-term products and protocols and so on, really. And ones that don't have particularly opaque collateral backing as well. Like Morpho was a great example where some of those Morpho markets maybe have 60, 70, 80 different tokens of collateral back in that one market. And a handful of those collateral backing tokens will have different collateral types back in those tokens, and it's so opaque and so difficult for the average user or even a sophisticated user to spend the time to go in and actually do all of that research and do all of that management and understand what the actual risks are, which is we take all of that away for you.
Yeah, quite recently I was looking at a protocol, a fairly big protocol, and just trying to figure out, well, okay, what is it actually exposed to? If I go through all of the exposures, and it had one Morpho vault that it was exposed to, and that Morpho vault had like 23 different assets. And so technically, this protocol stablecoin has exposure to every single one of those 23 assets, and all of those 23 assets have exposure to different things if there are other yield-bearing stablecoins. And it really is a massive web. So it's nice to have that research abstracted away. But you mentioned things like risk managers and like things that are overseeing these. Can you kind of explain that and how that works, and then also like how Summer governance plays a role in all that?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. So if I jump in on this, and then I'll let Jordan jump in on the Summer governance side. So the risk manager, the risk manager for SummerFi on the Lazy Summer protocol is Block Analytica. So really, when you look at SummerFi as the kind of project, like we're like the technical and product experts, really. Like we've like obviously developed all the code, written all the like the products and so on, written the front end app and so on. That's where our expertise lie. But we're not risk managers. We don't have risk backgrounds or anything like that. So the protocol actually has this third-party risk manager, Block Analytica, have got two people on it, basically full-time, continuously monitoring and updating the risk frameworks, adjusting the risk like things, monitoring the back-end collaterals and so on. But they're a completely independent entity to like the Lazy Summer protocol and SummerFi. There is no overlap at all in any of those entities, except we go a long way back with Block Analytica. So Block Analytica were also the risk manager for Sky, and were the risk manager for Maker as far back as like 2021, possibly even 2020. I can't remember the exact time they started, but they have a lot of experience managing a lot of protocols. They're now the risk manager for Spark and things like that as well. But yeah, they are the ones that do all of this active risk management. And this is the active term, which I think is really important here as well, that it is active risk management. But what they can't do is they cannot reallocate capital anywhere. They cannot decide on new markets to be added and so on. Only the keepers that are actually run by SummerFi can actually reallocate capital, and only the DAO can decide which new markets actually get added. But even when a new market is added by the DAO, the risk manager still has to give it a positive risk cap as well. So even if the DAO wants to put on some super risky meme trading exchange just because it's paying 100% APY, the risk manager would never likely allow any deposits to go into that. So it would never increase the risk cap. So that's this kind of like, we have this three pillars kind of operate in the protocol as like independent entities in a way that collaborate really well. But I'll let John talk about the DAO side of it and how the Summer token fits into that as well.
Yeah, so basically, I think a really good way to think about it is like the how does a new yield source basically come into the protocol, or how does a existing yield source get offboarded potentially, or change parameters within the protocol? Maybe it becomes a little bit less risky, or maybe more risky, which we've seen both ways already in the protocol. So really practically, it starts kind of like a funnel. So it starts with anybody anywhere can propose a RFC to the forum, to add a new yield source, and then Block Analytica, generally speaking, mostly will come to the protocol, or come to the forum and say, hey, this looks good, or it doesn't look good for various reasons. That RFC will then turn into a SIP, which you kind of see here, which will then go to the sort of a governance vote in the form of a SIP. And this is where Summer token holders are so important, because Summer token holders, whether in the form of voting themselves or whether in the form of a delegate, will then have the final say in terms of, yes, this is great, it's value accretive to the protocol and value accretive ultimately to the Summer token, because any new market that comes, or any new yield source that comes into the protocol is, by definition, should be attracting new capital, new demand. And yeah, what that means is more deposits. More deposits means more revenue, and that revenue is going to the protocol treasury, as well as to Summer stakers. So, and Summer holders have both a claim on the treasury, the Lazy Summer treasury itself, as well as has a claim directly to revenue share from the protocol if they are staking. So yeah, and which is a nice, beautiful segue into the Summer token, which is obviously launching or starting to trade today. And
is
all
there an
of the
official
benefits.
time for that?
Yes, there is. Chris would know it. Oh, you're on mute, Chris.
Oh, sorry. Midnight UTC tonight, or probably easier to describe as like 0100 Central European time. The token starts trading on Aerodrome Ignition. So that is the kind of launch time for it. The token has been live for almost a year. So the token's been out there for 51 weeks, but to date it's been non-transferable. So on that previous screen you just saw, it shows the SIP vote, SIP 516 at the bottom, which is enable transferability of the Summer token. So it's pending execution. It's ready to be executed, and up to 2 minutes prior to the to midnight UTC tonight, that can be executed, and it will start then immediately trading soon as the Aerodrome epoch flicks over on base to the new trading window. So at midnight UTC, you will then see Summer be a tradable token, and yeah, as people might have seen, we're launching through Summer
6% of the votes. Oh my gosh! Yeah, we should talk about that in a second. This definitely is like the yieldy elephant in the room. But before we get to this, let's go back and talk about the Summer staking. So, you have to be staking to participate in governance. That's correct, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. And so you can learn about the Summer token here. You guys have what's called a dual. I want to call it reward system, but I think you guys have another name for it. Dual something. Rewards.
Dual token rewards, yeah.
Dual token rewards. There we go. And so, correct me where I'm wrong. The way, it's right here in front of me, but the way that works is you have 20% of all revenue is going to like rev share, so it goes back to stakers as a form in the form of USDC, and on top of that, there is like this inflationary staking yield like you have with ETH or anything else, where you're getting more Summer tokens for staking the Summer token.
Correct. Yeah. So as with any project, like you expect kind of APY in a way for staking or being rewarded in the Summer token. Mm-hmm. But like if most projects, that just creates a downward spiral on price. Like people stake, they get paid in the tokens, they sell those tokens when they hope that those tokens are going to go up in value and so on. With this, we're trying to put real yield back into the holders of Summer and connect the Summer token to the real economic benefit of the latest Summer protocol, basically as the kind of operator. So as Jordan said, 20% of their revenue, and that's across public vaults, the institutional vaults as well, that we have 20% of all revenue that comes in immediately every month gets paid out to stakers of the Summer token. And staking, there's different lockup periods for staking. So the longer you lock up, the greater the share of that yield of USDC yield you're going to get, and Summer yield as well. So the longer you stake for, the longer you lock up, the more yield you can earn, which is why they're both up to certain rates.
Oh, so if you click like stake, there we go. There's a
Exactly. Yeah.
up to 3 years, and that would give you the max possible boost, which would be
Exactly that.
whatever it is. And then there's also, so I was looking at this before. There's a penalty for withdrawing that is, I would say, a lot better than most haircuts you get for early exits on vesting, but it's still significant if you wanted to exit early. So it's not like you're locked at gunpoint. You're locked, but you can leave with a substantial haircut. So like if the price tripled,
exactly.
right, and then you're like, well, it's kind of worth it for me to maybe like have some liquidity here. You could leave whenever you want, just giving a haircut. Now, does that withdrawal penalty go to anyone in particular, or is it burned, or is it redistributed? How does that work?
It goes back to the Summer Treasury. So we could burn it, but then we're burning it almost for no value
Right.
as well. Like you could be burning it to buy tokens on the market or anything like that. But crucially, no, it is just going back to the Summer Treasury to then be reused for future incentive, future rewards things. The other thing is it does go down over time though. So as you said, the price has gone up. Like if it has 3x the price in a year and a half, it's a linear decay kind of penalty mechanism. So if you're locked for 3 years, then it's 20%. But if you scroll to like a year
If
and
you're
a half,
locked for like 34
then-
days, it's 2%.
Exactly. And the minimum is 2%. So if you ever withdraw early, there's always a minimum fee of 2%. But at a year and a half, it is 10%. And it's just a linear decay down. So as you gradually get closer, that penalty does decrease. So it's not like if I lock up for 3 years, I'm always going to have to pay 20% to get out. Every kind of block you get closer to the end, that penalty drops that little bit. So if it feels fair, it means the same penalty as if someone locks for a year and unlocks straight away, they pay the same penalty as the person locking for 3 years and withdrawing after 2.
I like it. So
I think
go
one
ahead.
other thing to highlight here is like, largely from the background of the team that we've been in DeFi for so long that you'll see a lot of things here that you've maybe seen in other protocols, but we've really learned a lot, I think, from things that have worked really well and things that have not worked really well in different protocols. Oftentimes, I think you see these tokens and these token incentives and tokenomics at odds with the core value of the protocol and whatever the product is. But I think one thing here is that we really thought deeply around how to make the token and the protocol value a very integral part. So, if you're someone who's depositing in the protocol, you're earning Summer, you can stake Summer, and it has this really nice sort of flywheel and sort of feedback loop that is building upon each other. So if you're earning in the protocol, you're getting value from the protocol, you get the token, and then you get value back from the protocol again. So it's sort of a really nice loop in that way.
So let's talk about like the things that are here, right? My understanding was that when a new protocol or opportunity wants to come onto Summer, it has to go through governance. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So like if someone, but what if there are duration risks that everyone likes, but that the protocol doesn't want? So like Pendle, let's just say there's some Pendle markets out there, SUSDE, it's doing 8% or 9%. People really want to see it on there, but there's a duration risk. Would these be assets that are automatically shot down by governance or like flagged by a risk team?
So just jump in very quickly. I mean, it's a great example. I think there are two really key considerations. So it's actually Pendle is one of the things that I actually proposed when the protocol launched. So one, there's a technical consideration. Can it be done? And then after that, there's the risk consideration, which is this a risk that the protocol itself and Summer token holders want to bear? And that is informed by Block Analytica as a risk curator. But the final say is from token holders and delegates who, ultimately are going to bear the ultimate cost, whether it's, has an existential risk for the protocol with respect to, the token value ultimately.
So the process here is the process that before there's even a proposal, it goes through the risk team first to see if it's like a 0 to 1 sort of binary. Yes, it should go to proposal. No, it shouldn't even get there because it's just, we don't want anyone propose. Like, can anyone propose? Or
Anyone.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah. So you could, I think the two key words are discussion
Sure.
and debate, and risk analysis. So discussion and debate is really up for anybody to come
Right.
and you see teams do full on proposals and full on sort of analysis of why they should be in the protocol, and then the I would say not final word, but a very heavily weighted opinion will be Block Analytica from the risk analysis perspective, and then it will culminate in a vote.
And then even after the vote, is it that Block Analytica will still say, okay, well now they've said yes, but even though they've said yes, we're still saying, given our risk profile, these things will have this sort of framework to work within.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they'll set like the maximum TVL caps, and maybe just say, oh, okay, only 20% of the vault's TVL can go into this strategy. Like we don't want to expose the vault's TVL to more than 20%, basically.
Which also protects you guys from a governance attack. Like if someone somehow acquired like 90% of the Summer tokens and was like, my meme coin is now whitelisted for all vaults. Block Analytica would just say, okay, 0% allocation under every circumstance.
Exactly, yeah, and they have, and then there are like kind of decentralized guardians that are being set up as well and in discussion as well now, that also will have the power to pause markets in the event of anything like that even being proposed, where maybe there's concern that Block Analytica haven't seen or haven't noticed, or it's the middle of the night and things like that. So yeah, there's multiple fail safes kind of built into the protocol on that, and again, and that falls back to the individual parties. And again, even their keepers, there is also a fallback where the keepers can obviously be changed and adjusted to set to potentially not allocate to a market if the keepers. There's some work ongoing now with kind of automated kind of like kind of threat detection within the keepers as well. So looking at kind of liquidity markets, making sure that there's never capital deployed when you're the only liquidity in the market, or if liquidity is at 100% utilization, not to deploy additional capital into that market, because you know it'll probably be max utilized again, and you'll never be able to withdraw. So there's again multiple checks on the kind of the keeper side, the risk manager side, and then you've got the DAO that does the DAO stuff. But the Pendle example is also a really good one, because to date, like there's always been hesitancy, I think, from kind of the DAO and the engineering side as well, around putting like the Pendle products in, because it exposes all of these products to peg risk. Then as well, because when you start to get the Pendle PT tokens, and then particularly for like SUSDE, and it's not so prevalent now, but especially at the start of the protocol and in the early days, the USDE token used to fluctuate quite heavily around the kind of the rates and so on. And if you are in some of these protocols and you're in it maybe for like 10 days, the change in peg could wipe out any potential earnings in that time, if you then need to get out of it again within 10 days. So it might look very attractive at like 8-9%, but if the team is maybe like, it might be a high rate because everything's come down at the moment, but if the rates pick up again, suddenly you're leaving money either on the table, or you have to actually spend more money, and actually the share price actually goes down and so on. And if there's anything major happening as well, and you rely on kind of decentralized swapping and things like that, which you have to do in protocols like this, you are potentially exposed to the issues that like Yo faced recently as well, where they swapped like huge amounts of like staked Go for a tiny amount of USDC, for example. So there are these extra considerations when supporting those types of markets that are all part of the discussion and part of the onboarding flow. That it's not all just decided by one team with a multi-sig or anything like that.
Yeah, I love the checks and balances system. I know there have been some protocols that have tried to solve this exact problem with rules that say you always have to hold to maturity, rules that say you always have to use linear rate oracles. So even if the IOI increases and the PT goes down in value, it is still being valued as if it is increasing linearly. That works great when everything functions exactly how it's supposed to. It doesn't work great when there's a DPEG, and now all of a sudden the linear rate oracle is giving you a dramatically different price. So it's cool to see you guys thinking about risk in a very like serious way. Do you guys have a sense of any of the newer adapters or protocols that may be coming on to here in the near future? Or integrations, I guess is the right word.
Yeah, so we have a couple of very, very interesting ones. I think there's two facets to this. There's one is absolute like new sources coming in, which for example we have Midas Apollo coming in this week, which is a great example of governance and risk in action. You know, I actually proposed MEV Apollo or Midas MEV, which was a higher yielding strategy I saw on Vaults at FYI, and then Midas Apollo, me as a user, I probably just deposited in both. Block Analytica said, hey, these are dramatically different.
Yep.
Apollo is good. MEV is not so good with respect to risk that we want to bear. So Apollo will be going in this week. ETH Plus will be going in this week to the ETH higher risk vault. We have 40 acres right now USDC on base in RFC, so that's maybe will go in. And we also have high growth ETH from KelpDAO,
which is a fairly high yield right now too, as well.
Exactly, yeah. So that's also in RFC right now.
And RFC just stands for Risk Framework Council.
It stands for request for comment, which is just
I was
like
totally wrong. I wasn't even, not a single word was right. No, 0 for 3.
Yeah. But it's okay. Hey, we're learning. So yeah, those are all coming into the protocol. Then we have the notion of risk caps. So if you click on one of maybe the USDC higher risk strategy, you'll see that in the underlying yield sources, that a lot of them are not allocated to right now. So if you click on view more, these are all a bunch of yield sources that Block Analytica has said, hey, given the sort of market conditions, we want to take a step back with respect to risk, and we don't want to be in these more risky yield sources, but that's dynamic. So, over time, these risk caps will be raised. And an example of that is, I think, within the Hyper EVM vault, Felix, the Felix, I think USDC yield sources those caps will be raised this week as well. So users will get access to more yield sources, as you can see. Yeah. So Morpho USDC Felix has no allocation right now, and that will have a raised risk cap this week.
This is really cool. So it's like Block Analytica is the protector of the allocations, and then once something says, maybe it can go up to 5% into this or 7% into this, then the algorithm kicks in and says, okay, well, let's optimize within that framework that you set.
Exactly.
And that framework is dynamic because there's not a single AI in the universe that can actually tell risk as well as a team of dedicated people who specialize in risk.
Exactly, yeah, and we can build certain things into the AI keepers and so on that can give you some insight, but things like XUSD with Stream Finance and so on, like soon as those rumors started on Twitter, Block Analytica immediately assessed all the different markets that had any potential exposure to XUSD, whether at the first level, the second level, or even the third level, kind of down, as we talked about before with the various Morpho vaults and backing collateral. They set all of the vault caps to 0 across a lot of markets that had that exposure. And I think, and it took the weekend because there was limited liquidity on some markets. But I think 7 hours before it was actually announced that Stream Finance had the 93 million loss, all SUMR.fi vaults have been completely removed for any exposure for XUSD. So the system worked really well. Obviously, the AI stuff we wouldn't have been able to detect that any sooner than the Twitter rumors or anything like that at all. Maybe it would have come up based on kind of social rumors and so on. But the chances of it actually maybe doing anything may have been probably not as quick as Block Analytica immediately stepping in and saying, hey, it might be conservative, but we're going to do this. So a little bit like how you see rumors on when centralized exchanges go under and stuff, right? Like with the FTX rumors and stuff, and suddenly they have to pause withdrawals because now all the capital in the hot wallets is drained and things like that. But yeah, it's an extremely reactive. We said at the very start that active risk management is key here. It isn't just deploy the vaults and hope they work and so on. They're very much kind of full-time actively managed.
So it's
and they do a great
risk
job
management,
with that.
Algorithmic strategy management or allocation.
Exactly. Yeah. So you've got active manual risk on one side with automated allocation then if the risk caps allow it.
That's cool. All right, I like that. Now, you guys have come to Hyper EVM. Is there any sense in other chains you guys might go to?
I think at the moment these are the ones for us. I mean, there's a number of chains that Hyper EVM I think for us showed real organic kind of product market fit, organic growth and so on. It's on there. It's obviously done hugely successful, primarily supported with Hyperliquid and so on. But you look at some of the other chains like Plasma, Sonic showing the same at the moment. Katana never kind of kicked off. It did at the very start with some pretty solid yields and so on. but like there's no organic growth there. There's no kind of product market fit for those chains, and it get a little bit like the protocols that are supported through Summer, and even on the old Summer.fi Pro, where we used to only support kind of blue chip protocols and blue chip networks and so on. That's the same here. Like we don't really want to be chasing every protocol under the sun. We don't want a list of 100 different markets for people to be able to go into, and so on. But we do want kind of like long term where people can feel like they can deposit into a product, and that product will still be maintaining a good yield because it's got good like underlying kind of user support for it in a year's time.
All weather, whatever the risk-free rate is, you'll be doing slightly better than the risk-free rate. Plus, you'll have some additional benefits on top of that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So there's a lot of chains that we just listed before that had a lot of incentives right at the very start, but they had nothing unique about them, and the capital flowed in, and then the capital flowed back out again. So it might be slightly slower to market, but exactly. And we see that
tides go out. You can't explain that.
Exactly. Yeah. And unless someone, I think, develops some sort of real USP on there. And I think that's what Hyperliquid have done recently, right? Or Hyper EVM alongside Hyperliquid. They developed, like, they've got a solid USP. And that shows in the kind of user retention and so on.
So let's talk about the elephant that I previously mentioned, which is Aerodrome. Because I need some help here. Because I have never dealt with a aero ignition market. I don't even know what that means. Except for it sounds like it's the starting of a token. So a token is about to do its liquidity generation event, and that's why it's called aero ignition. Is there anything we need to know about like an ignition market that's different or unique from a regular market, or how to participate in it, or what any of these numbers mean?
Yeah, totally. So the reason you might not have heard of it is they only launched, I think, in October last year. So there's only been 3 ignition programs.
I feel better now.
Prior to Summer. So Summer is number 4 in that list. And effectively, what happens here is 3% of the Summer supply basically is being provided to Aerodrome VE holders in the form of incentives in order to vote for aero incentives for users to supply liquidity to the Summer USDC pool.
So 3% of the Summer token is being used to bribe for votes.
Exactly that, yeah. So we're effectively bribing VE holders for votes, who then put their aero tokens, effectively aero incentives, then onto the Summer USDC pool for
under
when
what
trading.
time frame? Like what is the time frame for that 3%?
For 1 week, midnight to midnight, so 1 epoch effectively, and it's really to kickstart liquidity for the Summer token and Aerodrome. Aerodrome in general, but also specifically really Aerodrome Ignition is just like a completely like fair launch, like fair market launch. Effectively, there's no price set initially or anything like that. Full price discovery will happen on Aerodrome. It's the main DEX for the Summer token. Summer is obviously initially deployed on base and so on. And one of the reasons for that, even in the early days, was because of Aerodrome and the way you can do that. Projects can still go and supply incentives to other pools. So you see kind of Fun USDC. Fun only launched this week as well. And the Fun project have put incentives onto the Fun pool as well. But yeah, from Summer's point of view, it's a huge amount of Summer tokens going to VE Aero holders to then put those incentives on to provide liquidity. So when Summer starts trading, it should start immediately trading to a very, very highly liquid market. On in the DEX sphere, basically.
Now you say the highly liquid market. DeFi. Is that because of the anticipation that a lot of the people who have Summer will run over there and deposit liquidity, or is there like a preset amount of liquidity that will be put there by the protocol or by the team or by Aerodrome? Are you completely relying on decentralized users?
Decentralized users ultimately, because of effectively the APY of the pool, with the Aero tokens.
Should be a lot. I mean. 60 million VE Aero is substantial. It's at 6.3. So last night I recorded a video on this last night. It was like at 5.1. Now it's at 6.3, and seemingly climbing. So
and epoch ends at midnight UTC, and typically if you look at the previous or every epoch in a way, a lot of the votes come in the last 12 hours, which we're in now. So
Now, on top of that, there's a 2% swap fee. So the fees for this as well are going to be pretty kooky. They're going to be wildly high.
Yeah, and because it's the first time Summer's going to be trading, it's going to be volatile as well,
It's
right?
gonna be
Like the
volatile,
price
that's
is going to be bouncing around. There's going to be a lot of probably arbitration opportunities as well when it starts to launch on other markets. We have a couple of centralized exchange going live 1 hour later as well. So in theory, once the price discovery has taken place in that first hour,
sex arbitrage is going to go, which just creates
Exactly.
more volume.
Exactly, yeah. And then the flywheel starts, and then after 24 hours as well, there'll be protocol-owned liquidity also deployed as well to then start to hold it once the price is there. And then ultimately, to complete the aerodrome flywheel, there is a proposal going up from the community to effectively purchase a load of VE Aero tokens as well to continuously direct aero emissions to the market even after it's launched in like week 2, week 3, week 4, and so on.
Yeah, I was going to ask, like, doing the incentives for week 1 to build that liquidity is fine and fantastic, but then what do you do afterwards? And it seems like
Exactly.
the idea is that you get some VE Aero and then are able to direct incentives that way.
Exactly, yeah. Plus the protocol own liquidity then as well.
And so the reason why you're not seeding protocol and liquidity initially is because you want there to be price discovery first, then liquidity seeding.
Exactly that, yeah. And allow
but then you won't be able to
the
farm
Aero
those
community
fees, man.
to. Sorry.
So then you can't farm those fees though.
Or we can't, but that's then where it's a fire launch, and you allow the community to effectively to earn as much as possible for being part of that kind of like fair
Right,
price
and taking
discovery.
the risk on of early volatility and volume and craziness that will happen. So
Exactly.
the time again, I'm trying to like conceptualize it in terms of my EST brain because I'm here at Eastern Standard Time.
Yeah,
That
so
is,
it's 0100 Central European time. So I think you're 6 hours behind.
Yep. So
7 p.m. I think
6 o'clock, 6 p.m.
6 p.m. 6 p.m. Yeah.
There we go. All right, we got it. We can do math here. I was once called the calculator guy. I swear I can do basic math, basic addition and subtraction. So that's really cool. So it seems like there's really 2 major things you can do. You can stake or you can provide liquidity. Now a question, because if you have a staked version of Summer, the next question is typically, will that staked version of Summer have liquidity itself? Will that also be a composable tradable asset, or will it not be? Will it just be like stake and lock because there's a locking mechanic or mechanism involved?
It gives you a staked Summer token, but that token itself is non-transferable. So when users are staking that Summer, they are then ultimately removing liquidity and any potential kind of dumping liquidity and really from the market. So effectively, you're removing potential sellers from the market once that is deposited, especially with the time-based locking mechanism as well on there. So it's non-transferable. So again, unlike VE Aero, which you can lock up to 4 years and there's no withdrawal options and so on. But there are secondary markets because effectively it's just an NFT that it gives you. There are secondary markets to be able to buy and sell locked VE Aero for the different locking periods and so on. For Summer, no, it's completely non-transferable. So the only kind of liquid market for Summer is going to be the primary Summer token on base. And again, we're trying to concentrate as much liquidity around Aerodrome as possible as well, which is why we're not kind of pushing a multi-chain like approach or kind of even multiple markets. Like we're not seeding Uniswap pools or not putting incentives into Uniswap pools or anything like that. It very much is kind of all in on the Aero and Aero community at this point.
So another question kind of rises from that, which, well, not really, not from that. I guess that's like, you guys have base alignment, but the question is, we talked before about, I think it was called lazy leverage or lazy loops.
Yes.
Or there was some alliteration with L's and laziness. And I was excited for that because, you have these fairly risk-adjusted underlying opportunities, and then being able to take on some leverage with those was exciting to me. Is that still on its way?
Hopefully. So they were very, very close to being launched. I think like the end of October, like it was getting ready to launch on multiple like Morpho markets and so on. And then of course with the whole stream finance thing, I think it was the 4th of November. I think the rumors started at the end of October. It kind of put kill into that in a way. Like all the risk curators across like the kind of Morpho, Eulers,
had to reassess
obviously
everything.
they had a lot of attention on them. There's obviously a lot of out there about some losing a lot of money with the different collateral backing tokens and the really opaque backing then as well of some of those tokens that were being leveraged and so on. So yeah, it kind of put that on hold. not so much from our point of view, but more from the risk curator's point of view. And you see a lot of the risk curators at the moment take a big step back from onboarding like those types. You even see Block Analytica in the latest Summer protocol. How many Morpho and Euler markets were in that list that are grayed out right now because they've removed liquidity and stuff from those markets. So there's still a hope there at the moment. DeFi yields in general, they're all pretty low at the moment. That of course means that the borrow rates are a bit lower, but they're all condensed around the same sort of rates and stuff at the moment as well. So the opportunities there, when we spoke before, I think the lazy yields were 8, 9, 10% in places, but the borrow rate on places like Aave or Compound was still around the 4, 5%. So there was a big opportunity at that point to be able to potentially be able to do something. But yeah, like right now, I think we need to see one DeFi yields increase again for the bigger spread, for the bigger opportunity, and so on. And then I think kind of like feeling among risk to go a little bit maybe risk on again to take those on basically.
Well, that kind of leads to another question, which is right now it seems like Lazy Summer is focused on EURC, USDC, USDT, and then ETH. Is there any appetite for things like gold or Bitcoin or other sort of large market cap assets that people may want to get yield on?
Bitcoin's always been a popular one and one that gets asked for a lot, but the yield on Bitcoin only ultimately comes from the underlying token. Exactly, and it comes from the underlying token yields and so on, which the SUMR protocol is the SUMR protocol is designed perfectly for, because it continuously automatically sells token rewards and then deposits those into the base asset back into the vault. So it's like auto compounding that yield, but we're still talking there at like 0.3, 0.4%. And so on. So when the risk manager needs kind of paying and so on, the keeper costs need covering and so on, there's no money left in a way to pay for those things.
There's a juice squeeze, formula that goes into that.
Yeah, exactly. Pretty much. Yeah, there is a minimum needed to cover the cost of operating those things. Like some can be run at a loss, of course, for kind of TVL liquidity and so on. But there is at a certain point that kind of the business sense needs to come in, even for the SUMR token holders, because they put the time and effort in as well. But yeah, Jordan, you might have some updates on some other tokens that might be interesting. I think there's one on Hyperliquid, right?
Yeah. So I think the key, it goes back to a framework to a degree. We want to have deep liquidity. Number one, we want to have, generally speaking, the native asset of a network or a chain. So on Ethereum, obviously that's ETH, USDC, USDT. These are the best assets on Ethereum. And I think if we take that framework and apply it to different networks, I think Bitcoin, exactly. Hype, yeah. So Hype, maybe USDH if it becomes more liquid and more used throughout the ecosystem. If there's a base token, maybe base. Arbitrum, I think there's a case for ARB, but the yields around ARB are kind of non-existent. Yeah. So that, it's is there yield? Is it deeply liquid? Is it the native asset of that chain? Or the sort of anybody coming to the forum, going back to that notion of anybody can come to the forum and sort of propose to have it as a yield source. But for me, I think Hype is probably the biggest one. And there's a case for Bitcoin as well, maybe more so from the yields are quite low, as everybody knows, but maybe more so from like a diversification or something like that point of view, where maybe you don't want to have exposure to just wrap BTC or just CB BTC or another one, and maybe you want to have yield basis in there as well. So maybe from a diversification point of view, it's a nice way to have diversified exposure easily. But those are the main ones. The
ability to get exposure to yield basis without having to snipe the caps with a bot would be nice. So being able to abstract away the difficulty to enter some of these things that have like very, very closed cap mechanisms would be something that I would participate in, because I'm always trying to get into yield basis, and it's nearly impossible unless you're just either watching it feverishly or build some sort of automated system to get into it. Now, I have taken up most of the air in the room by talking about yields, which is the thing that I am sort of most excited about. But I know there are probably some other things you guys wanted to mention here. So I'm going to let you guys kind of direct from here on out. What am I missing? What haven't we talked about yet?
I think you covered. I think you covered a lot of it. I mean, the big thing for us is the Summer token launching. Obviously, in about 10 hours, maybe 10 hours now, on there, and then obviously the Summer staking. Like we talked a lot about how the Summer token is a utility token
8
for
hours,
governance,
man.
but
According to my math.
8 hours, 8 hours and 7 hours 8 minutes. I think.
Yep.
From my point of view. Yeah.
Hey, so even less than 8 hours. We're getting there. We're
less
this close.
We're there. So yeah, I mean, the Summer token, just the fact it's a utility token for governance, but also then participates and has that economic exposure, I think is the big message we were want to try and get out there for with the Summer TGE coming. As soon as you buy that Summer, you can then stake that Summer for the yield on there. And but the big thing about Summer.fi, the latest Summer protocol, are the yields. So I mean, that's what the product does. That's what the product's designed to do. It's all about earning a yield, whether that's on EURC, USDC, USDT, ETH, or Summer. That is what it's there for, and it's all about automated exposure, set and forget strategies, kind of do less and for more, basically, is the key.
There is another question around this, which is like, it's very hard to get a yield on the euro. I think that's one of the major complaints that I often get in the dojo is, hey, I am holding the euro, I'm not holding USD because recently the euro has outperformed USD. How can I go get a yield on that? Have you guys considered? Or actually, technically, all of these are either 4626 compliant or ERC20, right? So someone could theoretically do something with this EuroC vault.
When you say do something, how do you mean? Sorry.
So like there's you deposit into this, and then you receive a receipt asset for that. And even though no one is doing anything with it yet, someone could, like if they wanted to spin up liquidity for it, I don't see the reason to do that. But they could do that. It could be used as collateral somewhere in the future. There are things that could happen. Yes,
100%. Any kind of risk curator on any kind of like of these kind of like risk curator model markets, Morpho, Euler, so on, like could spin up and support the LV EuroC token, so the lazy vault EuroC token, and then take that as collateral. If the borrow rate is obviously less than around 5%, then it makes a lot of sense to be able to then do the lazy looping, as we talked about before. And once those are available, once those are competitive as well, then you will also build those lazy loop strategies directly into the UI. So you can deposit EuroC into it, choose your kind of loop multiple, or in fact, you probably wouldn't even choose your loop multiple. It would be a target one that again is all fully automated, and it would try and hold it around there to make sure it's always in profit. Is the idea of that? So if it goes out of profit, then obviously you would lower the range, probably putting liquidity back into the underlying markets, would then hopefully bring it back into some sort of equilibrium. Either you're earning the rate on the base market, which right now is like, as you can see, is 5.88%, or you're earning more. But unlike if you're managing yourself, like overnight, it may suddenly be earning minus 15% to then earn like plus 4% when during the daytime. Like that you would always be earning at least a baseline yield, which is super exciting. There's just very little opportunity at the moment, given where the yields market kind of is. That doesn't take you too far out on the risk curve on there.
Perfect. I love it. Well, cool. Chris, Jordan, thank you guys so much for joining us, and for everyone who's watching, thank you guys so much for watching. And yeah, I mean, so the Summer token goes live or transferable at 0 UTC Central European Time, which is in roughly 7 hours and 6 minutes 7 hours and 54 minutes. There we go. From right now. No, 7
hours 4 minutes. Yeah,
7 hours and 4 minutes. There we go. Yeah, I swear, simple math is the hardest thing to do. So go check it out. Aerodrome is a good place to do that. Staking on the Summer.fi app is the other place. Thank you guys both for joining us. And for everyone else, have a wonderful rest of your day.
Cool. Thanks for having us.
Bye. Thanks for having us.